Can I tell you something quickly? Several years ago, something happened to my mom. It was during those times when there are sales, on TVs and all that stuff. And she went and bought a TV and put it in the kitchen in her house. Well, she put it in her house and then she left. She went out to run some errands and then came back. And the house, it was open. The door was open, the kitchen door was open, and the TV was gone. So we came to the conclusion. Someone saw you buy the TV and followed you, waited until you left, and stole the TV. Tell me, when was the last time you expected something good to happen to you? And I don't mean wishing for it, I don't mean asking for it, and I don't mean visualizing it, but actually expecting it to happen. Because if we're honest, a lot of people spend more time expecting something to go wrong than expecting something to go right. Think about it. Or they expect rejection, they expect problems, they expect delays, or the call that never comes. Right? And Florence wrote a whole chapter about something that might seem very simple, but could completely change the way you normally react to your reality. How you normally react. It's the ability to look forward with wonder. Okay? Okay? So join me in reading this chapter called Look with Wonder by Florence Scovel Shinn. And we're going to read it so you can see this way of looking at life from Florence. It says, Look with wonder. This is from The Secret Door to Success. Okay? It says, I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember your wonders of old. This is Psalm 77:11. It says the words wonder and wonderful are used many times in the Bible. In the dictionary, the word wonder is defined as a cause for amazement, surprise, astonishment, a miracle, a marvel. Ouspensky, in his book Tertium Organum, calls the world of the fourth dimension the world of the marvelous. He has mathematically calculated that there is a realm where all conditions are perfect. Jesus Christ called it the kingdom. We could say, seek first the world of wonders, and all things will be added to you, instead of seeking first the kingdom of heaven. Okay? He's making this change of wording, right? Seek first the world of wonders, or the kingdom of wonders, and all things will be added to you. It can only be reached through a state of consciousness. Jesus Christ said, to enter the kingdom, we must become like a little child. Children are continually in a state of joy and wonder. The future holds promises of a mysterious good. Anything can happen overnight. Robert Louis Stevenson, in A Child's Garden of Verses, says, the world is so full of things that I'm sure we should all be as happy as kings. So let's look with wonder at what we have before us. I was given that affirmation a few years ago, and I mention it in my book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. It says, I had missed an opportunity. This is an experience of Florence. It says, I had missed an opportunity, and I felt that I should have been more awake to my good. The next day, I said the affirmation first thing in the morning. I gaze in awe at what's before me. At noon, the phone rang and the proposal was presented to me again. This time I understood it. Indeed, I looked on in astonishment since I did not expect the opportunity to present itself to me again. A friend at one of my gatherings said the other day that this statement had given her wonderful results. It fills the consciousness with happy expectancy. Look, this is really interesting and very important because it's true. It says, children are full of happy expectation until they grow up, and unhappy expectations take them out of the world of wonder. Let's look back and remember some of the gloomy ideas that were passed on to us. Eat the spotted apples first. That's one phrase. 2, don't expect too much, that way you won't be disappointed. That's true. I remember at some point they used to tell me, don't trust people. People always want to mess with you. People always want to take advantage of you. Now, if you think about it, These phrases and beliefs are instilled in you based on their own experiences. The person who is instilling this in you, your parents or your grandparents or whoever, those who are authority figures in your life when you are a child. So that's what they're passing on to you. I remember clearly I used to hear people are just looking for ways to mess with you. People in the government, everyone is a thief, all this, all that. And you get an idea. It gets ingrained in your foundation. So you have to try to reconfigure those ideas, right? Don't expect too much. That way you won't be disappointed. You can't have everything in this life. See how limiting that is. You can't have it all in life. No one knows what the future will bring. What a start in life, he says. These are some of the impressions I gathered in my early childhood. At the age of 6, I had a great sense of responsibility. Instead of looking at what was in front of me with wonder, I looked at it with fear and suspicion. Now I feel much younger than when I was 6 years old. Just look at how much can change just by changing the way you think. It's true, just so you get an idea. When we instill these ideas in children or when we ourselves were conditioned that way, well, it's not cool. What are you doing? Instilling stress, mistrust, fear, and insecurity in a child from a young age. What does a child do? It's always trust, it's innocence, you know? So what Florence says here makes a lot of sense. She says, I have an early photograph from around that time with me holding a flower. But with a disheveled and desperate expression, I had left behind the world of wonder. Now I lived in the real world, as my elders used to tell me, and it was nothing marvelous. It's a great privilege for children to live in this era where they are taught the truth from birth. Even if they aren't taught real metaphysics, the ether is filled with joyful anticipation. You can become a Shirley Temple or a Freddie Bartholomew. I imagine they are artists or were artists or famous people from that time, people they admired. Or become a great pianist at the age of 6 and go on a concert tour. Okay? Where do children do this? In their imagination. In their ability to imagine and fantasize. We are all now back in the world of wonder, where anything can happen overnight. Because when miracles come, they come quickly. So let's be aware of miracles. Let's prepare ourselves for miracles. Let's expect miracles. And then we'll invite them into our lives. Maybe you need a financial miracle. There is a supply for every demand through active faith. The word and intuition. We release this invisible supply. I'll give an example. One of my students. She found herself almost out of funds. She needed $1,000, and she had had a lot of money at one time, and beautiful possessions. But she had nothing left except an ermine wrap. I don't know what an ermine wrap is, okay? An ermine wrap, it can refer to a classic fur garment. It's a traditional heraldic symbol, or it's even something very valuable. An ermine mantle. It's a cloak or an accessory made from the fur of this small mammal, okay? An ermine is a mammal. Let's see, what is an ermine? I want to see the animal. This is an ermine. Okay, I just learned something. Thank you. Thank you, Florence, for making me look this up. No fur trader would give him much for it. I said it would sell to the right person for the right price, or that the supply would come one way or another. It was necessary for the money to show up quickly. There was no time to worry or reason. She was out on the street making her affirmations. It was a stormy day, and she said to herself, I'm going to show active faith in my invisible supply by taking a taxi. It was a very strong hunch. At her destination, exiting the taxi, a woman was waiting to get in. She was an old friend, a very kind friend. It was the first time in her life that she had taken a taxi, because her Rolls Royce was out of service that afternoon. They talked, and my friend told her about the ermine stole. And she said, wow, her friend said, I'll give you $1,000 for it. And that afternoon, she had the check. God's ways are ingenious. His methods are sure. This is something that Neville also tells us, right? She viewed the law's workings with amazement. Our demonstrations usually arrive in a fraction of a second. Everything is timed with astonishing precision in the divine mind. My student got out of the taxi just as her friend stopped to get in. A second later, she would have called another taxi. Our part is to stay fully alert to the signs and hunches we get, because on the magical path of intuition, everything he desires or needs is there. Okay, let me pause for a moment. How do you build your intuition? You develop your intuition when you have your mind organized and calm most of the time. When you use your mind consciously, how do you do it? Meditation is what helps you with that. Okay? That's why I always say meditation in the morning is important. Raul, I don't like to meditate. Try it. Make it a daily practice. Because throughout the day you will have the ability to calm it and quiet this part of the mind that's always thinking and going crazy. It always has to be occupied with some thought, and that lowers our ability to perceive intuition. It lowers our intuitive capacity, okay? So that's how we develop it, right? It says, because on the magical path of intuition is everything you want or need. In Moulton's Modern Reader's Bible, the Book of Psalms is recognized as the perfection of lyric poetry. Musical meditation, which is the essence of lyric poetry, cannot find a higher field than the devout spirit that rises at once to the service of God. And it overflows into the various aspects of both active and contemplative life. The Psalms are also human documents, and Psalm 77 is selected because it gives the image of a desperate man. But when he contemplates the wonders of God, his faith and confidence are restored. I cried out to God with my voice. No. I cried out to God with my voice. I cried out to God with my voice, and he heard me. In the day of my trouble, I sought the Lord. My soul refused to be comforted. Will the Lord cast off forever and never be favorable again? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger shut up his tender mercies? And I said, this is my infirmity, but I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember your wonders of old. I will also meditate on your work and speak of your deeds. Your way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is a God as great as our God? You are the God who works wonders. With your arm you have redeemed your people. This is a picture of what the average student of truth goes through when faced with a problem. They are assaulted by thoughts of doubt, fear, and despair. Then what? Then some affirmation of the truth will flash in his consciousness. God's ways are ingenious, his methods are sure. Remember other difficulties that have been overcome. His trust in God returns. Think what God has done before, he will do for me and even more. So, that's good because whenever something comes up, what you can do is go back to past experiences which were resolved in the best way. And that way you don't have to stay stuck or in a negative state where you're waiting for things to turn out the way you don't want. Okay? For that, you can remember those past moments when everything turned out fine for you. And surely you have had them. You believe God will do for you what he's done before and even more. Not long ago, I was talking to a friend who said, it would be very foolish if I didn't believe that God can solve my problem. So many wonderful things have come to me before. I know they will come again. So the summary of Psalm 77 is, what God has done before, he will do now for me and even more. It's good to say it when you think about your past success, happiness, or wealth. All loss comes from your own vain imaginations. The misuse of imagination. The fear of loss crept into your consciousness. You carried burdens and fought battles. You reasoned instead of sticking to the magical path of intuition. But in the blink of an eye, everything will be returned to you. Because as they say in the East, what Allah has given cannot be diminished. Look, can I tell you something real quick? Several years ago, something happened to my mom. It was during those times when there are sales, on TVs and all that stuff. And she went and bought a TV at a supermarket and was carrying it in the truck. So she arrived and took it into the kitchen, into her house. Well, she took it into her house and left. She went out to run some errands and then came back, and the house was open. The door was open. The kitchen door was open and the TV was gone. So we came to the conclusion someone saw you bought the TV and followed you and got out. They saw you left and stole the TV. Do you know how she reacted? She said, I don't care. One way or another, this is going to come back. Well, he went on with his day. Later that same night, the lady gets an idea. She goes to the casino and she wins double or almost triple what the TV cost. The next day, she went and bought it again. So, when you're in this state of calm, for me, that's a very clear example of what Florence is saying here. What God has done before, He does now for me and even more. But in the blink of an eye, everything will be returned to you, as they say in the East. What Allah has given cannot be diminished. Now, to return to the state of consciousness of a child, you must fill yourself with wonder. But be careful not to keep living in your childhood. I know people who can only think about their happy childhood days. Do they remember what they wore? Do they remember what they wore? Since then, there have been no skies as blue or grass as green. Therefore, they miss the opportunities in the wonderful present moment. I'll tell a funny story about a friend who lived in a small town when she was very young. I mean, this is also telling you not to get stuck in the past, right? Because if what happened in the past was something wonderful and you hold on to that expectation from before, nothing in your present will fulfill you. So it's good to go back to the past to bring back that feeling. That emotion is cool and you bring it into your present moment. But you don't get stuck or keep living in the past like, oh, it used to be wonderful, right? It says, I'll tell a funny story about a woman who lived in a small town when she was very young and then moved to another city. She always remembered the house where they lived for the first time. For her, it was an enchanted palace. It was big, spacious, and glamorous. Many years later, when she was already older, she had the opportunity to visit that house. And she felt disappointed because she found it small, cluttered, and ugly. Her idea of beauty had completely changed. Because in the front yard, there was an iron dog. If she went back to her past, it wouldn't be the same. So in this friend's family, they called living in the past Iron Dog. Her sister told me a story about an iron dog she had made. When she was about 16 years old, she met a very elegant and romantic young man abroad. He was an artist. This romance didn't last long, but she talked a lot about him with the man she later married. As the years went by, the elegant and romantic young man became a very well-known artist, and he came to this country to hold an exhibition of his paintings. My friend was very excited and looked for him to renew their friendship. Isn't that curious? She went to his exhibition and a burly businessman walked in. There was no trace left of the handsome, romantic young man. When she told her husband, the only thing he said was, Iron Dog. Remember, now is the time, today is the day. And your good can happen overnight. Look in awe at what you have in front of you. We are filled with divine expectation. I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. This is biblical too, isn't it? Now let each one think about the good that seems so difficult to achieve. It could be health, wealth, happiness, or the perfect expression of oneself. Don't think about how your good can come about. Just give thanks because you have already received it on the invisible plane. Therefore, the steps that lead to it are also assured. Stay very alert to your intuitive clues and suddenly you find yourself in your promised land. And it ends with this. I look with wonder at what is before me. And that's where it ends. So, there's something I love about Florence. She has a very simple way of reminding us of something we usually forget, Life can change much faster than we think. Yeah? A meeting, an idea, a decision, a conversation. And suddenly everything can go in a completely different direction than you thought. The idea is that it turns out for the better. That's why you shouldn't obsess so much over how things have to be, or obsess so much over when. Just do your inner work, maintain your state, listen to your intuition, and let life surprise you. Think about this. The child waiting for his birthday present doesn't spend the night before calculating which route it will come from or who is going to give it to him. How will his present arrive? No. The child simply knows that the present is going to arrive. That is certainty without anxiety. It's expectation without tension, without fear. That is looking forward with wonder, just as Florence teaches us. All right? So I hope you enjoyed this chapter. Thank you so much for joining me in reading Florence this time. I'm sending you a big, tight hug. And that's all from Domina tu mente con Raul. See you in the next video. See you soon.